v3's Joyful Learning Mass Media. v3 means variety, validity, victory. The v3's and M's multimedia approach to learning.
Grammar.
10th English Grammar Exercise, page number 11. Defining and non-defining relative clauses.
English grammar exercise. Defining and non-defining relative clauses. Relative clauses. We use defining relative clauses to give essential information about someone or something, information that we need in order to understand what or who is being referred to. Relative clauses. A defining relative clause usually comes immediately after the noun it describes. Relative clauses. We usually use a relative pronoun. For example, who, that, which, whose, and whom to introduce a defining relative clause. Non-defining relative clauses. We use non-defining relative clauses to give extra information about the person or thing. It is not necessary information. We don't need it to understand who or what is being referred to. Non-defining relative clauses. We always use a relative pronoun who, which, whose, or whom to introduce a non-defining relative clause. We don't use that to introduce a non-defining relative clause. Some short forms applied in the file to make it easy. They are defining relative pronoun DRP, defining relative clause DRC, non-defining relative pronoun N DRP, non-defining relative clause N DRC, extra information EX, necessary information NE dot I. Nick has a small foot which helps him balance.
Defining relative clause. No commas.
The people who live in glass houses must not throw stones.
Defining relative clause. Defining relative pronoun. No commas. Noun and relative pronoun.
I decided to give people the courage that the article had given me.
Defining relative clause. Necessary information. Noun and relative pronoun. No commas.
Nick, who later achieved a degree, says this.
Non-defining relative clause. Comma. Comma. Noun and relative pronoun.
The woman who taught him surfing had been bitten off by a shark.
Defining relative pronoun. Defining relative clause. Necessary information. Noun and relative pronoun.
Nick, who was teased and bullied, had an electric wheelchair for mobility.
Non-defining relative clause. Noun and relative pronoun. Comma. Comma.
The brave 26 years old, who is mainly torso, plays football and golf, swims and surfs.
Non-defining relative clause. Hyphen. Hyphen. Comma.
Nick, who was born in Melbourne, now lives in Los Angeles.
Non-defining relative pronoun. Non-defining relative clause. Comma. Comma. Extra information. Noun and relative pronoun. The meeting, which was held in the town hall, was a great success. Defining relative clause. Necessary information. Noun and relative pronoun. No commas. Defining relative pronoun.
I read a disabled man who had managed to achieve great things and help others.
Defining relative pronoun. Defining relative clause. Necessary information. No commas. Noun and relative pronoun. Silk sarees, which are made in banners, are popular all over the world. Defining relative clause. Noun and relative pronoun. No commas. Defining relative pronoun.
Suresh, who is our neighbor, has left the school just now.
Non-defining relative clause. Comma. Comma. Noun and relative pronoun. Defining relative pronoun. Is this the street which you have asked for? Defining relative clause. Necessary information. Noun and relative pronoun. No commas. Defining relative pronoun. Defining relative clause. Necessary information. Noun and relative pronoun. No commas. Defining relative pronoun. The place that witnessed 2 accidents yesterday has been closed to traffic. Defining relative clause. Necessary information. Noun and relative pronoun. No commas. Defining relative pronoun.
This is a famous engineering college which attracts students from all over the country.
Defining relative clause. Necessary information. Noun and relative pronoun. Defining relative pronoun.
The theatre, which was constructed last year, was designed by Mr. Rao.
Defining relative clause. Necessary information. Noun and relative pronoun. No commas. Exercise on defining and non-defining relative clauses.
Nick has a small foot on his left hip. It helps him balance and enables him to kick.
Nick has a small foot on his left hip which helps him balance. Noun and relative pronoun. Defining relative clause.
Nick now lives in Los Angeles. He was born in Melbourne, in Australia. Nick, who was born in Melbourne, now lives in Los Angeles.
Non-defining relative clause. Noun and relative pronoun. Comma. Comma.
Edison failed many times in life. He invented 1,000 things. Combine the sentence with who. Edison failed many times in life. He invented 1,000 things. Combine the sentence with who.
The pronoun who is to be placed in between the subject and the verb. The second sentence of the subject, the particular pronoun, should be removed and at the end of the full stop of the first sentence disappeared automatically when the two sentences combined. Noun and relative pronoun.
Edison, comma, who failed many times in life, comma, invented 1,000 things.
Non-defining relative clause. Noun and relative pronoun. Comma. Comma.
Napoleon died at St. Helena. He won the French honor.
The second sentence of the subject, the particular pronoun should be removed and at the end of the full stop of the first sentence disappeared automatically when the two sentences combined.
Napoleon, who won the French honor, died at St. Helena.
Non-defining relative clause. Comma. Comma. Noun and relative pronoun.
The teachers say that Abraham is an exceptionally creative. They taught him. The teachers who taught Abraham say that he is an exceptionally creative.
Defining relative clause. Necessary information. Noun and relative pronoun. No commas.
Suresh has left school just now. He is a clever student. Suresh, who is clever student, has left the school just now.
Non-defining relative clause. Comma. Comma. Noun and relative pronoun.
Balakrishna won the MLA seat. He has been a popular hero. Balakrishna, who has been a popular hero, won the MLA seat.
Non-defining relative clause. Comma. Comma. Noun and relative pronoun.
Share this material for the welfare of the student community. V cube SNM from Dommeru. The end.